Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
Good evening and welcome to Spring Global on Western Spring Television. Now the headlines. The Gambia's Vice President Badara Aliyu Diouf dies in India. Ukraine President has asked the Security Service to investigate this morning's helicopter crash in Kyiv. Australia has announced it will ditch its fleet of European-designed Taipan military helicopters a decade earlier than scheduled. My name is Damilola Raphael. With 37 days to go to Nigeria's general elections, the Independent National Electoral Commission has extended the deadline for the collection of permanent voter cards nationwide by 1 week. INEC National Commissioner Festus Okoye said that the deadline for the collection of PVCs has been shifted to Sunday, January 29th, to ensure every registered voter has ample opportunity to collect their PVCs ahead of the forthcoming elections. In the city of Oshogbo, there is a low turnout of people at the various wards, and according to the resident electoral commissioner in the state, Dr. Mutiu Agboke, majority of the residents have gotten their PVCs during the state gubernatorial election in July 2022. Olayinka Ali has the rest of the story.
With 6 weeks to go to Nigeria's general elections, the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has extended the deadline for the collection of permanent voters' card (PVCs) nationwide by 1 week. INEC National Commissioner Festus Okoye said the deadline for the collection of PVCs has been shifted to Sunday, January 29, to ensure that every registered voter has ample opportunity to collect their PVCs ahead of the forthcoming elections. In the city of Oshogbo, there is a low turnout of people at the various wards, and according to the resident electoral commissioner in the state, Dr. Mutiu Oladele Agboke, majority of the residents have gotten their PVCs during the state's gubernatorial election in July 2022.
The majority of them have definitely collected this card during the build-up to the governorship election. And if you look at the analysis of the cards that we have in our custody, most of them are old cards. The cards of 2011, 2015, 2019, all of that.
A resident in the state, Mr. Latif Olayiwola, has however charged the remaining people who have not collected their permanent voters card to go and get it, as it is the only gateway for them to exercise their voting rights.
I had my PVC already, I know, like 3-4 years ago, so not that I just collected my PVC. As in Nigeria, it's our duty, to vote and to vote for. So, and if you didn't have your PVC, that means you are not ready to vote. And if you do not vote, you don't have a say in what is going on in your society.
However, as of January 17, 2023, the INEC REC has disclosed that there are 398,141 yet to be collected permanent voters' card in Osun State. Olayinka Ali, Western Spring Television News.
Still in Osun, two farmers, Samuel Oyedotun and Tobiloba Fashola, who were kidnapped from their farm along the Ede-Ile-Ogbo Road last Wednesday, have regained their freedom. The two farmers were released alongside one of the relatives that was kidnapped when he went to deliver the ransom. The two were kidnapped while returning from their farm in Ayedire local government area of the state. The abductors first demanded 25 million naira as ransom. However, it was later reduced to 6 million naira, which was delivered to them in a border community between Kogi and Kwara State. The spokesperson of Osun State Police Command, Yemisi Okpalola, confirmed the incident. Outside Nigeria, the Gambia's President Adama Barrow has announced the death of Vice President Badara Aliyu Diouf. Diouf, age 65, was appointed Vice President of the West African country in 2022. He previously served as Education Minister from 2017 to 2022. Barrow said on Twitter that Jove had died after a short illness in India without providing further detail, including when he died. The vice president had left the Gambia about 3 weeks ago to seek medical treatment and had not been seen in public for months before the trip. Kenya's President William Ruto has made sensational accusations of a plot to abduct and kill the head of the Electoral Commission in the run-up to the announcement of the presidential results last year. Mr. Ruto was declared the winner of the presidential elections held in August 2022, taking 50.5% of the vote amidst dramatic scenes at the vote tallying center. At the time, Electoral Commission Chairman Wafula Chebukati said he had done his duty despite receiving threats. Yesterday, the president claims the plot to abduct Mr. Chebukati was sanctioned by the highest office. He made the remarks during a meeting with commissions and independent offices at State House, Nairobi. The president's rival at the elections, Raila Odinga's party, ODM, has scoffed at the remarks, calling it a well-choreographed chorus.
We also know that there was a direct attempt to abduct Wafula Chebukati and murder him so that the commission would be paralyzed, or a compliant commissioner take over and subvert the people's sovereignty. It was a hard, cold, and lonely time. The threats were dire. The promised rewards very lavish, and the pressure relentless.
To the Russia-Ukraine war, Ukrainian President Zelensky has asked the country's security service and the national police to investigate what led to the helicopter crash in Brovary, Kyiv region. President Zelensky made this known in a post on Telegram, stating that the exact number of victims is still being established as rescue workers are at the site. Zelensky said among the victims are the Minister of Internal Affairs, Denis Monastersky, his first deputy, Yevhen Yanin, State Secretary of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, Yuri Lukovich, their assistants, and the helicopter crew. Similarly, the death toll of this morning's helicopter crash in an eastern suburb of the capital, Kyiv, has risen to 18. 18 people, including Ukraine's Interior Affairs Minister, were killed after the helicopter crashed near a kindergarten school in Brovary. 2 children were amongst the dead, and 10 more are being treated in hospital. After the crash, a fire broke out close to the kindergarten, and children and staff were moved from the building. Wreckage from the helicopter was visible outside a burning building. Russian President Vladimir Putin says victory in Ukraine is inevitable. Mr. Putin stated this when he met workers at a factory that makes air defense systems in St. Petersburg, adding that the overall military equipment output was rising even as demand for it continues to grow. Putin said in achieving the end results and the victory that is inevitable, the unity and cohesion of the Russian and multinational Russian people, the courage and heroism of the fighters, and the work of the military-industrial complex is very important. Russia has accused the United States of preparing the ground for the conflict in Ukraine as part of what it describes as a hybrid war against Moscow. Russia Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov disclosed this at a news conference in the Russian capital, stating that the crisis in Ukraine started long before Moscow sent tens of thousands of troops into the country last February. Speaking at the news conference, Mr. Lavrov says the U.S. has assembled a coalition of European countries to solve the Russian question using Ukraine as a proxy. Mr. Lavrov further added that Moscow will be forced to take unspecified measures on its border if Finland joins the North Atlantic Treaty Organization military alliance. British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly says Ukraine's allies must step up their military support to Kyiv to help it break a frontline entrenchment and avoid a devastating, protracted World War I-style battle of attrition. The British Foreign Secretary made the remarks at a joint news conference with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken in Washington. It came ahead of a meeting this week of senior defense officials from dozens of countries at the U.S. Ramstein Air Base in Germany to coordinate military aid to Kyiv. On his part, Mr. Blinken said the fastest way to get to diplomacy is to give Ukraine a strong hand on the battlefield. Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine began on February 24th, the United States and its allies have provided Kyiv with tens of billions of dollars worth of weaponry, including missile systems, drones, armored vehicles, and communication systems. However, Ukraine says it needs more help to defeat Russia on the battlefield.
And as Secretary Blinken said, the main subject of our talks today was Ukraine's current struggle against aggression in our time. From the onset of this crisis, Britain and America have worked hand in glove to help our Ukrainian friends defend their homeland against Putin's aggression. Ukraine's heroic armed forces have liberated thousands of square miles, and I have no doubt they can win in their battle for freedom. As you will have seen, Britain has decided to accelerate our support, including the supply to Ukraine of main battle tanks, heavy artillery, and other military systems.
First, I think it's important to say that as this aggression has evolved, so too has our assistance to Ukraine, making sure that it has what it needs to meet the aggression head on. And as I said before, that started long before the Russian aggression, when we saw the storm clouds gathering in the months before the aggression. We initiated what we call drawdowns of our own military equipment to Ukraine to make sure that it had on hand what it would need if Russia went through with the aggression. So Stingers, Javelins, all of those were provided initially around Labor Day a year ago, and then again before Christmas.
In Europe, police in Western Germany carried Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg and other protesters away from the edge of an open coal pit mine where they demonstrated against the ongoing destruction of a village to make way for the mine's expansion. Thunberg was among hundreds of people who resumed anti-mining protests at multiple locations in the western German state of North Rhine-Westphalia, a day after the last two climate activists holed up in a tunnel beneath the village of Lützerath left the site. The German government reached a deal with energy company RWE last year, allowing it to destroy the village in return for ending coal use by 2030 rather than 2038. Both argue that coal is needed to ensure Germany's energy security, which is squeezed by the cut in the supply of Russian gas due to the war in Ukraine. But environmentalists say bulldozing Lützerath will result in vast greenhouse gas emissions. Germany is expected to miss its ambitious climate targets for the second year in a row. You're watching Spring Global on Western Spring Television. We will be right back after this break.
Sports is a culture on its own. It has its own language, its own people, with their own way of life. The world of sports is never void of actions, stories, dramas, and scandals. I guess you need a sports show that can walk the walk and talk the talk.
On this show, we answer all your sporting questions. The whens, the whys, the wheres, and even the what ifs. Sports Spring is that show that will give you that new lease of life you've been looking for in sport journalism. Join me, Joseph Atewe,
And your sports Amazon, Nengi Enes.
on this station, Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on Star Times.
Let's talk sports. Let's speak the most universal language of the world.
Turn it up. It's the Wild wild, wild west. And Western Spring Television is pulling out all the stops to make sure that you don't miss out on every of the fun and happenings around you. Yup, we've got you covered because your girls got all the juiciest tidbits and entertainment news from around the world. Cross over to the chocolatey side of entertainment. Join me, Chocolate Cassie, on Eccentric as we take you into every bit of the juiciest news, fashion, music, movie updates, and other trending conversations. Together on the show, we'll get personal with your favorite celebrities via phone call, Zoom, or even live here in the studio. Eccentric will be showing on your TV screen on Western Spring Television, channel 190, only on StarTimes.
You're welcome back. Australia has announced it will ditch its fleet of European-designed Taipan military helicopters a decade earlier than scheduled. Defense Minister Richard Marles made this known, stating that the equipment will be replaced with 40 Black Hawk choppers from the United States at an estimated cost of 2.8 billion Australian dollars. The French government has a significant stake in Airbus, the European aerospace company that manufactures the Taipans, and Paris has urged Australia to keep its 40-strong fleet. However, Mr. Marles said he had spoken with his French counterpart several times and was confident the U.S. helicopter deal won't interrupt the renewed relationship with France. United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has said the world is in a sorry state because of several interlinked challenges, including climate change and Russia's war in Ukraine. The UN chief disclosed this at the second day of the World Economic Forum, stating that the world is plagued by a perfect storm on a number of fronts. Mr. Guterres said the world is flirting with climate disastrous commitments to help the environment are nearly going up in smoke, while Russia's invasion of Ukraine adds to the interlinked challenges affecting the world. He noted that the invasion has a huge impact on the world, not only because of the untold suffering of the Ukrainian people, but because of its profound global implications on food and energy prices, on trade and supply chains.
We need cooperation, yet we face fragmentation. And I'm not here to sugarcoat the scale of that challenge or the sorry state of our world. We can't confront problems unless we look them squarely in the eye. And we are looking into the eye of a Category 5 hurricane. Our world is plagued by a perfect storm on a number of fronts. Start with the short term, a global economic crisis. The outlook, as we all know, is bleak. Many parts of the world face recession.
A Philippine court has acquitted journalist Maria Ressa and news outlet Rappler of tax evasion in a move hailed as a win for press freedom. Ms. Ressa, who, if convicted, could have been jailed up to 34 years, hailed the judgment. The Nobel laureate's legal victory marks the end of a case that began in 2018. Ms. Ressa, who founded Rappler, has been the target of legal action launched by the Philippine government. Under former leader Rodrigo Duterte, the Philippine government had accused Ms. Ressa and Rappler of evading tax payments when it raised capital through its partnership with foreign investors. Ms. Ressa and Rappler denied the charges and said the transactions involved legitimate financial mechanisms that do not generate taxable income. South Korea's spy agency has raided the country's main labor group, stating that the operation was part of an investigation into whether some members had links to North Korea. The National Intelligence Service and police raided the office of the Korean Confederation of Trade Unions, KCTU, in central Seoul on Wednesday. The spy agency said some of its members were suspected of having ties with North Korea, adding that the offices of the KCTU-affiliated Korean Health and Medical Workers Union in the southwest of the city were also raided. South Korea remains officially at war with North Korea, and under a controversial and archaic National Security Act, possession of publications or other materials produced in the North can be a criminal offense. Macau gambling kingpin Alvin Chow has been sentenced to 18 years in jail for more than 100 charges, including organized crime and illegal gaming. The 48-year-old, who was the chairman and founder of Sun City Group, was found guilty in a case that centered on illegal bets exceeding $105 billion. Chow, a high-profile and colorful figure in the local casino industry, has denied the charges. Macau, a former Portuguese colony, is the only Chinese city where casino gambling is legal. It was Macau's biggest operator of junkets or organized trips for wealthy gamblers to casinos. Prosecutors had accused Chow of creating and leading a criminal syndicate that had facilitated undeclared bets. The world's oldest person, Lucille Randon, has died aged 118. Miss Randon, who assumes the name Sister Andre as a French nun in 1944, died in her sleep at her nursing home in France. Born in 1904 in southern France, she lived through 2 world wars and saw 27 French heads of state dedicated much of her life to Catholicism. A spokesman from her nursing home, David Tavella, shared news of her death with reporters yesterday. She had been Europe's eldest for some time, but she enters the Guinness Book of Records last April as the world's oldest person following the death of Ken Tanaka, a Japanese woman who lived until she was 119 years old. In sports, British #1 Emma Raducanu is out of the Australian Open after losing in straight sets to Coco Gauff in a gripping second-round match. Raducanu, ranked 77th in the world, acquitted herself very well against the American 7th seed, but a lack of matches fitness told in a 6-3, 7-6, 7-4 defeat. The 20-year-old had battled an ankle injury before the Melbourne Major. Meanwhile, Cameron Norrie, Britain's leading men's player, reached the 3rd round after a late-night win over Constance Lestienne. In football, a Saudi real estate mogul has won a ticket to see Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi face off in a friendly after bidding $2.6 million at auction. The match on Thursday in Riyadh is set to pit Messi's Paris Saint-Germain against a select side made up of players from Ronaldo's new club Al Nassr and their Saudi rivals Al Hilal. It will mark the first time Ronaldo has played any football in the kingdom since signing a contract with Al Nassr that runs until 2025 and is worth more than 200 million euros. To promote tomorrow's friendly, the head of Saudi Arabia's General Entertainment Authority, Turki Al Sheikh, announced a charity auction for a special ticket that will come with perks like photo opportunities with players and access to the locker rooms. Al Sheikh then announced on Twitter the winning bid of 10 million riyals had come from Moshrif Al Ghamdi. The proceeds from the auction are due to go to the national charity campaign known as Ehsan. Before we end Spring Global, here is a recap of our top stories. The Gambia's President Adama Barrow has announced the death of Vice President Badara Aliyu. Ukrainian President Zelensky has asked the country's security service and the national police to investigate what led to the helicopter crash in Brovary, Kyiv region. Australia has announced it will ditch its fleet of European-designed Taipan military helicopters a decade earlier than scheduled. You can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. Thanking you indeed for watching. I am Damilola Raphael. Do have a good evening.